Hey YouTube, it's Scott, the Bigfoot Explorer. How are y'all doing today? Another video. It's Patrick Vaugn, Bigfoot Encounters in North Louisiana, Part 3. This is a really good one. It's a little longer than 1 and 2. So we're not going to waste any time. Let's sit back, grab yourself a beverage or a snack, and let's get into the Patrick Vaugn Bigfoot Chronicles, Part 3.
This call is now being recorded.
Hey, Patrick, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. It is Tuesday at 7 o'clock. You ready for some Bigfoot?
Yes, I'm always ready to get into it.
Well, I know everybody really enjoyed Part 2. We kind of left off with you and your tracking buddy. He had wanted to go out there and see some things, which is incredible to me. He really got what he asked for, in my opinion. So I know you've been making a little notes here and there to try to keep things organized, and we've been doing Part 1, 2, and 3 kind of like a consecutive time stamp of when things started with you. So if you want, I'm just going to let you go ahead with it, and I'll be taking some notes, and we'll kind of do like last time. Sound
Okay,
good?
no problem. Sounds good. Hello, Bigfoot Explorer listeners and subscribers. I do read all the comments, and there's some great insight and some great questions in there. I'd love to be able to address them at some point in time. And also, there's no script to this. I think Scott does an amazing job providing a platform for people that can put their stories out there. And I'm really reaching from one community to another. You know, from the primitive survival groups that I run with, and putting out a study that I've done and is still going on. And there's a personal risk there for me. If
Right.
I send a ripple through the groups that I belong to, the repercussions and consequences will be swift and most likely permanent. And so that's why I try to keep it quiet, but I want the research highlighted, not me. You know, I want the investigations and everything to be looked at, and hey, I had this experience, or I have insight on this.
Right.
So this really is a study.
Yep.
So and that being said, getting back into the investigative notes, we left off with a revisit of my tracking partner trying to wrap his head around what he had experienced the
Right.
weekend before, and then and moving forward from that, we went tracking. He and I went tracking again. He was, quite interested after that. So we go tracking again. And, I picked up a person this woman said that she grew up knowing about him. She wasn't scared of him, and she wanted to pal around and do some tracking too. And so the three of us go out tracking, and we get in this bottom, and my partner, he picks up on a trail right off. And so we start tracking down this trail, and I'm not exactly sure what he's following, but I trust his instincts. He's a great tracker. And so we're behind him, and he makes his way down this hill and into this bottom. And then we come across this little track, 5 toes, the heel. I put $1 down, took a picture of it. And I've also found the Sasha's track, but her left foot, when her left foot hit the ground, it was either 4 toes and a heel, or going uphill, it was 1 big toe and a heel. And so I think she'd received an injury to her left foot, is what I take that as being.
And that's how you knew it was her.
Yeah, the size of it, the area of it.
Right.
This is the area she frequents. She has a little one there with her, which is Sam. And this is the same Sasha and Sam that we took pictures of when we pushed them, when we turned the lights on and we pushed into them and pushed them out of their tracks, and we were taking pictures of the tracks as the rainwater was running into them. We were just right behind them. That's how fresh we were. And, they're the same, mother and son. That's who we're tracking now in this bottom. And, so we make our, and we found where there, fresh tracks going up this hill, but there was tracks everywhere. She was standing still at one point and his little tracks were all around him. I mean, in every direction, within about 10 foot of her. You could track him, just this mess he made in a circle all around her. So, which was, to my insight, it reminded me of my son when he was young. He couldn't sit still. If I was walking and I stopped, he was just kind of everywhere. In Walmart, everywhere.
Makes sense.
I kind of got that little bit of observation in. So we keep tracking. We're tracking down this bottom, and we cross this little small creek. We go up over a ridge line and back down into a second bottom. And of course, there's fresh tracks on that first hill we had left.
Yeah.
Which I'm not, if I'm tracking fresh tracks, I'll double back on my trail just to check and see if anything's following me. And that's just a habit of mine, especially when fresh tracks are around. But we make it our way through this bottom, and it really turns into something real leafy, with oak trees, and you can see the punches and the leaves, which they're inconclusive to me. If I don't find a heel and 5 toes at a set size that I'm looking for, and this is the animal I'm tracking, then I really call it inconclusive. I made my way all the way down to another creek and tried to find where they crossed, but they didn't cross. They just stayed in the brush and the leaves, and so, and I double back on my trail. I go back up to the ridge, start walking up the ridge, and I smell something. And I just smell this musky musk smell. And it's coming from the other side of the ridge. And, it was a mistake that was made. When you're trailing someone that he made, Sam had been watching us, and was making his way up the trail where we came up the ridge line, and he was on one side of the ridge and I'm on the other.
Okay. Got
and
it.
I can smell him, and I'm just,
Man.
15 yards down this ridge, and I can smell him. And
Yeah.
the girl that was with me said, "Oh my God, you smell that?" I said, "I smell it. He's right there. He's just on the other side of this ridge." And so I kind of make my way up this ridge, and then he realizes he's busted. So he takes off running. He runs to my left down the ridge line, and get it all. I think I caught a glimpse of the top of the head. That was it. But
Yeah.
he's gone. Boom. And so I top this ridge line, and I start tracking him there, and I can see the punch marks in the leaves, which to me are inconclusive, but I still know it was there, and I still know it was him.
Yeah, because you saw him just run down. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my buddy, now you got to understand, I track at speed, which means I'm tracking to make a distance. I'm trying to catch what I'm tracking. And my partner, he tracks methodically. He is after every little fine detail of every little thing. And so he's still way behind me. I doubled back, and the girl's keeping up with me, and we go up, and on that trail, on that ridge, to double check my back trail, I bust him. He takes off to the left and runs out in the brush. My buddy comes up there. My tracking partner comes up there. I told him about it. He says, let's just get up on top of this ridge and sit down. Oh, all right, So we get up off this ridge. We just crest the ridge, and I'm sitting where the punch marks of Sam left in the leaves. I'm sitting there, and I can hear him in the brush making his way around about 60 yards out, just slowly moving. And I whistle at him, and he stopped dead still, and he didn't move. He didn't move another muscle after that. So then we called it a successful track. We had a lot of fun, found a lot of tracks, took pictures of tracks, and, you know, helped solidify in my partner's mind, yes, there are things out here that make these tracks, you know, because he's really struggling with this. And I understand that because I've struggled with it too. And I've seen some of the comments about, you know, belief in these things, you know. Yeah, I understand the struggle. I really do.
Now, the girl was elated, huh, or frightened?
The girl was nervous, very nervous.
Yeah.
She grabbed a hold of me, and she held on to me until we got out there. And I told her, I said, look, you can't be scared of these things if you're going to come out with us doing this stuff, you know. And which is kind of that surfaces up in another hunt, you know.
Right.
So you know, we called that a day, and we got out there. We had a great scout, a great tracking, because, you know, it's always fun to go out and really find this, because if you can track it, it's a physical thing. It physically made that. Just like the wood knocks, you know, the phenomenon of the wood knock, I kept running through my head. It has to have an opposable thumb to do this. What is doing it? You know, the whole time I was investigating the wood knocks. Well, the tracks are the same. It's a physical being. It's leaving tracks. It's there.
Yeah.
You know. And so, anyway, we leave that tracking session, and then a few weeks later, my partner calls me up and says, "Hey, I want to go and I want to do a yell." And I said, "Well, we're not yelling where we're at, because, you know, I know those down there, and I'm not starting anything, but I don't know what I'm saying to them, you know. I do have a yell. I have a yell that I captured, and, well, you know, I remembered it from the first debacle of a hunt at the very end of that night.
Right.
The one that yelled from way back there. I remembered that yell. I memorized it, and I knew how it goes. And I told him this, and he says, "Well, I wanted to go somewhere and do a yell." I said, "Okay, well, we'll go out of state." And so, you know, we set the date, and the girl wanted to go. So I picked the girl up, picked my partner up. We're trying to get there before the sun goes down so we do some tracking, but it's so far away we just didn't make it. We get there, and it's dark 30. And we pull down this old dim road, get down, snake our way down to this creek bottom. And there's about a 60-yard circular opening there. And I pull the truck in just about the middle of it. Then, you know, my tailgate was probably 10 yards from the brush line, you know, probably 25 yards from the headlights to the next brush line. You know, I'm in the center of this. And I like to put a little bit of space in between, you know, where I'm working and the brush line, if you can understand that.
Right.
You know. So we're down there. We get out, and my buddy says, "Let's do the yell." I said, "Why don't we just knock?" He says, "No, I want to hear it. I want to hear a yell. I want to know what a yell does." So I do the yell, and it's, you know, it's an exact recreation of what was done to me. And when I'm finished, my buddy looks at me and says, "My God, that's blood curdling." And then you hear just about, if you're standing at the tailgate facing the front of the truck, it's at the 7 o'clock. So it's behind us and to our left. And you hear something take off running. This what yell, it takes off running, it jumps this dim road, and it comes running, and it's just about 25 yards in the brush line, and it runs up and stops dead in front of the truck. And this is pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Now, the girl that was there, you know, she volunteered to do audio. So she's on top of the toolbox with her phone going and on record. So she records this, you know, this yelp, and to me the yelp was kind of frightful. you know, and it runs and, you know, it jumps the dim road, it gets in the brush, and it's just standing there 25 yards out right in front of the truck, and I hear this knock from way out, about 200 yards, and it comes up quick. You know, it's knocked. Every 50 yards it's knocking, and it comes up within, and it stands right next to the one that's already there. You know, so I'm at the truck. I'm in the middle of this 60, you know, yard diameter clearing, and I got one directly in the front of the truck and 25 yards into the brush line, and one comes running up within 20 yards of that second one, and it's standing there, and you can hear it in the brush, and it's pitch black. And the girl, the audioist, is on the toolbox, and she's shivering with fear. Well, then you hear this.
It too.
Huh?
Y'all all saw it.
Well, it's pitch black. We're hearing it.
Oh, you hear it?
There's pitch black, and we're hearing it. And so, you know, I did a yell. I heard a yelp. I heard two legs running through the brush. It comes in front of the truck. It's standing in front of the truck, back in the brush, you know, 25 yards. And then the second one, it's pitch black now. All you're really doing is listen to this. And of course you're listening to this girl on this toolbox go, you know, saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," you know. We're all, yeah. And so the second one comes out from, you know, 200 yards, knocking every 50 all the way up. And so it's standing right next to the second one. And then you hear another knock come out way back there down the creek. And it comes opposite side of the creek. It comes running up. You hear it knock, knock. It's coming, knock. And I already established what is knocking out there, so I know what it is. You know? Yeah. And then you hear, whoosh, it jumps in the creek. And it's swimming across this creek in the dark. And that's when my audio said a few expletives, and I'm done with y'all, and I'm getting in the truck. And so she opens up the truck, and she gets, you know, in the back seat of the truck, shuts all the doors. And so I'm standing outside, and I listen to this thing swim across the creek, and it's pitch black. And I'm trying to see, but I can't. And I don't know where the third one went, you know. And so my buddy knocks. He gets his stick out and he knocks. And the ones in the brush start knocking. And he'd knock and they'd knock. And, you know, my partner, he's trying to experience this. You know, he hasn't had enough of an experience. And he wants to experience this. And so that's the real reason. That's really the reason I went up there to do this, is strictly for him. You know, I already know they're real. And so, you know, the audioist is, "Hey, get in the truck with me. I'm freaked out." So, all right. So I get in the truck. I'm sitting there in the truck. I'm in the driver's seat. She's in the back seat. And the windows are down. And my partner just takes off slowly walking to them, into the brush. He walks to the brush line, walks into the brush line.
This guy's nuts.
He walks into the brush line, and it's pitch black. The moon ain't up yet. And it's pitch black, and he's walking into the brush line, and he's not afraid of anything. And so he's knock, and they'd knock, and he was just walking to the knock as they knocked. And he walked all the way into the brush, all the way up within 10 feet of them. And he's standing, he's got one maybe 10 feet to the left and one 10 feet to the right, and then him. And he'd knock, and then that one would knock, and this one would knock. That's the only way I knew he was okay. He'd knock, and he sat there probably 20, 25, 30 minutes just knocking. He'd knock, and he'd knock, and that knock. And I'd sit there, I sit in the truck in the driver's seat with this girl behind me going, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And I'm sitting there listening to these knocks. I said, "Shut up, I'm trying to listen. I want to know he's safe. Because if anything goes wrong, I've got to pull a weapon. I've got to pull a weapon and get him out of there. You know, whatever it takes to get him out of there. Because I'm kind of on safety patrol too. And you know, also, there's no way in the world I'd be able to explain to the police officer how I brought someone out and they're gone. Yeah. You know, they would lock me up until I tried to admit where the body was. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, they would not believe me. Yeah. They would prosecute me. And so it wouldn't do me any good to leave the woods without him. And so I'm listening to him knock, and it knock. That went on for a while. And then I'm sitting there in the dark, and finally the moon's kind of starting to peek up a little bit. And here comes, I see this image coming up to the front of the truck, and I just make out his goatee. And he can't even hardly see the front of the truck. He hits the front of the truck, makes his way around the truck. He gets in, and as he gets in, he has this expression on his face, this wild expression. And he gets in, and he closes the door real gently and looks at me. He says, "That was a little close for comfort." I said, "Why you say that?" He said, "They were growling at me." He said, "I was knocking, and they were knocking, but they were also growling at me real low." And he says that was an experience right there. You know, and I said, "Well, I hope you're satisfied." And he says, "Well, I'm not ready to leave. I'm not ready to leave." He opens the door up, leaves the door open. And I told him, I said, "Don't get far from the truck." So he walks to the front of the truck, and he's standing at the front of the truck. He says, "Hey, do this yell again." And I said, "All right." So I did a yell from the, out the window from the driver's side seat of the truck. And I do this yell, and it's a long, blood-curdling yell. And we're sitting there, and of course the door's open. He's in front of the truck, and you hear this low, raspy, gurgling sound. And it's just undescribable. And I'm trying to, what is that sound? And the girl says, "That's something gurgling. Could that be the creek?" I don't think, and she had leaned up in between the seats. When she did, I looked over, and I see this massive, blacker than the night, and the moon's, is starting to peak up for about, 5 minutes down. I could just make out the silhouette, and the head is down low, and it is growling, and it is about 30 yards off the truck door. It's again on the creek bank, has its hand on a small sapling, and is looking directly at the door, at me, growling this long, low, gurgly, raspy growl. He did it once, and when I looked right at it again, he did it a second time while I was looking at him. And so, that was probably the closest I've come to having a Bigfoot try to hand my butt to me. Okay.
Yeah.
I felt the threat of it.
Right, and your partner was standing there as well, so he saw it too.
Yeah, my partner was at the front of the truck.
Yeah.
And he's paying attention to the two in the brush. Now, when that growl come, this is the third one that jumped the creek that I never could get a bearing on where he was. That's what made me nervous about it, because there's three and I only know where two are. Yeah, he'd actually made it behind us and was behind us the whole time. And when I let that second yell out from inside the truck, he came up the creek, walking between the cypress knees, grabbed that little sapling and leaned in and looked at me at 30 yards out off the truck door and said, but that doesn't even cover what it really was. I mean, it was so low, so raspy. I don't think a human could do that. I don't think any other animal could growl like that. It was so low and so slow and so gurgly and so raspy. There's no way I could recreate that. And so I kicked the engine on. Blam! I got the engine on. Lights are on. Headlights on. Hey, partner, get in here now. And so, and he makes it to the truck, gets in the truck door. He said, "What was that low growl?" I said, "He was standing right there looking at me." He said, "Oh." So, so I kicked the lights on, engine's running. He says, "We're not leaving." I said, "No, we're doing eye shine." So I circled the truck around, the headlights going, trying to pick up. I was trying to see them, and the audio girl had the phone out, and I told her, "Put it on video. I want to video this if we catch anything." So we're circling with headlights on in this little circle. Of course, we didn't catch anything on video. So I pulled and I put the lights right where that big one was standing. And I said, "Let's do some tracking." Well, audio girl says, you've lost your mind. There's no way I'm getting out of this truck. There's no way. You've lost your mind. I'm not getting out. I'm right here. I said, okay, but I'm not leaving the weapon in here. So I got a weapon strapped on me. We're getting out. We're tracking, and my tracking partner, you know, he starts circling around looking, and I go right to where I know this was standing at, and I find its tracks. I found where it was standing when it growled at me. I took pictures of the photo of it. You can see the sand that came off the foot and had been deposited on the root that it was standing on. And I walked and tracked 5 tracks, you know, left foot, right foot, going back down the creek bank through the cypress knees where it was. And he had been behind a tree back there the whole time watching everything go on. You know, and when I let that yell out, that's when he stepped forward. I was the one he was targeting. There's no yelling. Nobody yells around here but him.
Yeah.
You know, he's the dominant male. And that's when I learned that kind of yell, tone of the yell really means a lot. You know, if you listen to the tone, you kind of discern what they're feeling when they let it out.
Yeah, the inflection. Right.
Yeah. And the one that I recreated was evidently a very, very, I'm the boss, I'm the bad one, very aggressive one. So they came in aggressive, which was my fault. That's absolutely, totally my fault. I did that.
Right.
I caused it. You know, I can't blame him for doing what he did, you know. But we get out and we're tracking, and we find the tracks. And
now, you tracking at night?
Yeah, this is at night, but the moon's kind of up now.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, you know, there's nothing left to do. We came, we heard. I saw that big one. I tracked his tracks. You know, audio girl was, I need a drink. Let's get out of here. So, we left there. We went to a little town, and there's a little shopping mart there, and got a couple of adult beverages. And we're going down the road, and we're heading to another spot that it's pretty creepy, but it's just kind of a safe, quiet place to get out of the way and reflect and talk and think about our experience and what happened and try to really kind of decompress. And it's down in the bottom, and we're headed there. And I turned a corner, and I thought I'd be funny. It wasn't funny at all, but I thought it was going to be. I said, "Oh my God, there he is!" Girl is trying to put these adult beverages in this cooler with this ice. Well, the ice hits the roof of the ceiling on the truck. The beer hits the roof of the ceiling on the truck, you know, and you know, the cooler comes across the seat, lands in the dashboard. I mean, it was a mess, and I thought, wow, I shouldn't have said that. I thought it was a joke. You know, it wasn't a joke to her.
No.
So we make it down in this bottom. We're sitting there, and I asked my partner. I said, "You didn't get some bad news from the doctor, did you? Because you act like you got nothing to lose going out there like that."
Yeah, a death wish.
And he said, "I just really wanted to have the experience." And I said, "Well, against my better judgment, I let you have the reins, and I can't believe you walked out within 10 feet of them knocking at them." He said, "And they were growling at me too, you know." And so we had a couple of adult beverages to relax, and he wanted me to do that yell again. I said, "Absolutely not.
Yeah. We're
not doing this. No." And it ain't happening. And so, you know, that was, and I'm going to tell you, an observation I had of this. Now, my partner walked out into the woods after the yell. Those two were standing there, knocking with him, saying, "I'm here," and growling at him. You know, he made it out of those woods, back to the truck, with no harm coming to him. He stood in front of the truck while I did another yell. And when I did the second yell, that big one came, and my partner's at the front of the truck. If anything wanted him, it could have had him.
Yeah.
But it wasn't growling at him, it was growling at me. It did not tack onto him my rudeness. You know what I mean?
Well,
and to me, that
it knew who the hollower was.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the first one I don't think he knew, but the second one, when he found out who it was, he directed his anger to me, and not the one that was outside the truck. So on a social science level, you know, as far as they go, that really reflects a lot on them, that they did not tack on my rudeness to him. They waited and directed it to me once they found out it was me being the rude person.
And what makes you believe that? The fact that he might be able to see, or the fact that your partner was obstructed by the line of sight of where he was?
No.
What made
my partner
do that?
All right, all three of these things have been here. Only two of them we've known where their locations were. Now this third one, I tracked him to where he was standing behind a tree.
Right.
And he was 35 yards off the truck on the passenger side, behind the truck, watching everything.
Yes.
So this thing,
right.
He knew that my partner went into the woods knocking, and he knew he came out, and he was standing there. And even when I yelled the second time, he didn't direct anything towards. You know, it wasn't an opportunistic animal. You know, my partner's already out there. He's great opportunity for anything that wants him. And I already know the capabilities of these things. They could have had him, but they didn't. They waited to see who was yelling and directed their anger towards me.
Man, I know my listeners are going to love this, but it's just incredible.
Well,
witnessed.
Well, when you slow down and really pay attention to what they do, you know, you can get a lot of great insight on what they don't do.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't have the ability to somewhat control. I'm not saying you had control, but had somewhat of a grip on your emotions enough for your logical thought pattern to do this, to discern this in a moment. Most people's adrenaline flight system is kicking in. They're flooded. They're scared. And really logical thought is nowhere to be found when you're in that state. And it's just, as much as the encounters is incredible, both you and your partner, there's a lot to be said for the way that you handled yourself out there to keep your wits about you.
Well, thank you. You have to understand, I did lose it in 2003.
Right.
I came real close to losing it in 2009. After, years of investigation and, knowing that they could have had me, they could have done harm to me many times and didn't. That helped me to really to put things in perspective and to really observe what they do, what they don't do, and that and really the skill set that I've got out of the almost 20 years of primitive survival I've been doing, and really having to slow down and think your way through problems. That's helped out greatly as far as a mindset goes. It gives me a checklist to go by.
Right. And also, those experiences happened over years. So yes. I guess, in a sense, if you're still someone who is passionate about finding these things and wanting to go back out, I can see how the reflecting back continuously would change the mood and the way you behave in your thought process each time you go back out. Whereas that first time, you were nowhere near the education that you have now.
Oh, no, it didn't exist to me.
Right.
The first time, there's no way this happened, but which is another reason why I want to get this out, and I'm grateful for the platform that you provide to do so. I'm not some romantic that romanticizes about these animals. Right. And I was an absolute adamant non-believer that investigated and studied and said, okay, this is real. You know, this is absolutely real, and carried on into gaining insight and knowledge and really, you know, carrying on and still trying to gain evidence on these. So
I tell you, you should think about writing a book.
Well,
I know we talked a little bit about it, but there's ways we can do it, and there are platforms that we could put this thing out. If you ever wanted to, I'd be glad to help you. But one thing I got to ask you real quick before we move on.
Yes.
This second holler test that you did with your buddy, where there were 3 of them, but he walked in the woods with 2. The third one was there, and y'all, was this at the location in part 2 where the scantily clad girl was, or
absolutely,
is this still in Louisiana?
No, this is in Arkansas, actually.
Oh, this third place.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. See, he wanted to do a vocalization, and I've only heard one you know, as far as a yell goes, I've only heard one at that time. You know, and I only knew that one yell, and he wanted to use it, so I went way away. So because I didn't want to upset anything in my normal my normal study group. You know, I do have a study group that I do study.
He had a place where he knew that there was a clan or something, or how did you pick this Arkansas place? Just on whim?
I picked a place on that met all the requirements that they would need. I didn't know anything was there.
You generally did this by like the Google Earth and maps and things of that nature?
Yes, I went. Yes, okay. Satellite pictures, the terrain, you know, what their needs were, and I had no idea anything was there. But he wanted to go and investigate and use this vocalization, and we did. And I wish I'd approached it differently. I do.
It's just incredible that, you know, you pick a spot and something like this happens.
Well, the thing is, and I'd like to address that. There are a lot of them in a lot of places that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
Just for doing years and years of knocking. And back then, not even knowing what the knocks were or what was doing it, but I found quite a few. I know where 9 individuals are right now within a 200-mile radius of me.
I believe you.
You know, so yeah, this was pretty much just pick a spot, go there, see what happens. I wished I'd have been a little more gentle with it, but he wanted to hear that yell, and I've never done it again.
What year was this?
This was 2018. This is fall 2018.
Jeez.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Now, and it's difficult to try to explain everything and as detailed as I can, because I know there's still going to be questions raised. And if anybody has questions, maybe they can email them to you, and maybe we can get enough material to do it live.
It's going to be in part 4. Part 4, you're coming on live, and you and I have done these series. I'm going to have these series up where we can, like, pick a spot if someone has a question about any of the stories from part 1 through 3. We can listen to that spot again. We can answer their questions. I think that would be a great thing to do for the subs.
Absolutely.
And to kind of flush it out in a different light after everything has kind of been laid down.
Absolutely. I'm on board with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I'll answer everything as accurately as I can. I'm really trying to tell this as accurately as I can. And this is a real, scientific study for me and how I did things and encounters and what I learned. And I'm so glad that Bigfoot Explorer puts it out there like they do. And hopefully we'll have a number 4 and can answer all the questions people have. So, all right. So, there's more going on, before I get into this. The unintended consequences of Sasha letting the little one around me, made him feel very comfortable in tracking me and trying his skills of getting around me and coming close. And I've had him 10 yards off my butt watching me fish. Okay, so, and it's an unintended, thing that happened, but it did. And he really kind of made a nuisance of himself when I'm fishing or hunting. And so getting into it, all right, I go hunting, and I left the area I was at because I knew that they frequented it. I didn't want to step on Sasha's toes. Their tracks are all through there. I go about 1.5 miles down to another area, and I scout it out. I got a great, deer hunt. I go in there, I set up, I'm deer hunting, and me and the girl are sitting there deer hunting, and we're on the ground, and behind, I got kind of a screen up set around us that we're hunting behind, overwatching the bottom.
Makeshift
and
line. Right.
Yep, and it's November. It's November of 2018, and we're sitting there quietly, and I hear this yell, this comes running down this creek, and it's on the other side of this damn road, but it's the same creek I'm on. And I hear this yelling coming down this creek from way out there, and he comes running and he gets real quiet. And then from a ridge line about 100 yards off, I get a whoop, and Sam found me. Okay, so little Sam found me, and he takes off down his ridge line. I kind of lose him. I don't know where he went after that, but I definitely got creeped out. Even though I'm armed, I'm kind of creeped. They still creep me out a little bit. And so we hunt till just about dark. I didn't stay in there till dark. I didn't want to walk out in the dark. So, me and the girl, we pick up her blind, we take off and go to the truck. And when we get to the truck, I can smell him. Again, he made another mistake. He most of them know to stay downwind. They don't put their scent in the wind. They pay real close attention. He's still young enough and still wild. And, with all the yelling and the running, I'm really taking it in that he's hit puberty,
Mm-hmm.
and I can smell him from this hilltop, and I whoop. I said, whoop. He said, whoop back. I said, okay, just checking, dude. I get in my truck and I leave. And
that was enough.
Yeah, I know you're there. You know I'm there. He already whooped and whistled at me once. And then, which was kind of a nuisance to me. I just want to relax and hunt, Please just let me relax and hunt. But no, that was not the case. And then, the following weekend, I get in there early enough. I make it to that ridge line he's on. And I'm scouting that ridge line. It's a steep hill. It's way up there. I can see why he would like to hunt it from there. I make it up this ridge line and I find a trail beat down. It's, 2 feet wide, and it comes over the top of the ridge, kind of goes down in the crest of the ridge, and then goes back up the other side. And so I thought I'd be smart. So I got set up above his trail to where when he come across that ridge line, he would walk down below me. So I'm set up there, and there was an unfortunate incident with another hunter, and I wasn't sure he survived for a while. I terminated that hunt pretty quick, And in December,
somebody shot?
Yeah, someone shot. And I'm sure someone had a hell of a story when they got home. Wow, this thing, you know, I saw it going through the woods, and I just up and you know, shot at him.
Yeah.
And to me, you know, I would never want to do that.
Right.
You know, I respect life. You know, I believe a monarch butterfly has the same right to its life as I do.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I've always been taught to make clear the target in front of you.
Oh yeah.
Before you ever think about what you're doing. And for some reason, just knowing me,
yeah,
I don't know. I would not have shot.
No, I've been hemmed up in a box blind with one outside my door sniffing.
I know.
And still held my fire because I respect his life. Until he does not respect mine, I'm gonna respect his.
Yeah.
You know, and but yeah, he just, you know, I heard the shots ring out. I got, and I'm set up on this trail. I know where he's gonna be, and I know when he's gonna be there. You know, and I'm set up on this trail, and I'm waiting on him to come down that ridge, and I'm gonna see him. He's gonna be down below me about 10 feet, looking up, going, "Oh wow," you know. That was the setup I had for him. And I was going to try to get a picture, but I hear the shots ring out. I know, you know, he come yelling down the creek. I heard the shot ring out. You know, I'm not going to go into great detail on that, but
right.
It was a bad afternoon. I was pretty aggravated, upset. I know the truck. I know the person that shot at him actually. And honestly, if I was that person, I would not go back in them woods again, because Sasha knows that he shot at him too, you know, and Sam knows who shot at him, you know, and unfortunately my truck, you know, he could see my truck from that area. That's the unfortunate part of it. And so I got real nervous and scared that he might associate me with something with that.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause they're not dumb. And so, you know, I left the woods, and I left the woods for, I think 3 weeks. I went later, and I was in a different area, just tracking, trying to kill a deer. And I'm tracking these deer across this open area, and I'm finding a lot of deer sign, a lot of deer track. And I see this one track running. And whenever you see a deer running, a lot of times, you know, you'll find a predator or something, a coyotes or a big cat. We got a lot of big cats. You'll find that track somewhere close, within 5 yards of one side or the other. And I don't find any predator track. And so I thought, well, that's interesting, you know. So, and I like tracking. So I'm tracking this running deer across this field, and I'm seeing where it's kicking up mud and digging in. I mean, it's reaching and getting it. And then I'm walking across there, and then bam, I see Sam's track. He stepped in an anthill, and he was about 15 yards off that deer trail and was running, and he stepped in an anthill track, and I snapped a picture of it, and you have that picture.
Yeah.
And that was December of that was right around Christmas time, 2018. And so he's alive.
Yeah.
You know, I was so relieved. I said, "Oh my God, he's alive."
Yeah.
You know, because I had been worried, and you know, because you know this is kind of my study group, and I do feel something for him. You know,
a kinship. Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel something for him. You know, I knew his mother before she had him. You know, he's come in the brush line around me. He's been 10 foot off my butt watching me fish. You know, and really making a nuisance of himself, because I cannot relax with him around, even though I don't show it. You know, but yeah. So he's alive, December 2018, and then January 2019, my partner and I, we go out tracking again, and we go back down. Well, we went into my first location tracking, and there was nothing. I didn't find a single track. All I found was just a bunch of leaves on the ground, no tracks at all. I went to my second location tracking that date in January, and we're tracking along. and we find the track where it crossed the creek, and it's Sasha's track crossing the creek. And the creek is, 5.5, 6 foot wide, and probably 6 foot deep, to the water at least. And there's a track in that crossing. All right. And so, I found Sam's track in the mud before the creek. I found her track in the creek. And that was just kind of a short trek. We went to another area and, where I'd found this track chasing that deer. I didn't find anything in it. And then we went back, that was the end of that tracking session. And then that was January 2019. And then July 2019, just this past Sunday, my son and I, we go on a tracking expedition, and we go to I always start at a certain location because I know, I can kind of gauge about what they're doing in that one location. And we go in and tracking, and immediately I find a week-old Sasha track that you have the pick of, and a week-old Sam track that you have a pick of.
Right.
And then we made our way through a bottom, and everything. I found a bunch of punch marks, it looked like it could have been, but it's inclusive. It's inconclusive to me unless I find 5 toes in a heel.
Right.
So I find activity, but it's all a week old. So I leave the first location, I go to the second location, and I'm tracking along. And my son's, he's trying to help me track. He's great in the woods. He grew up with me doing primitive survival. He's good in the woods, even though he's a little goofy. But I find a 3-day-old track of Sam's, which is exciting. It's not a week old. This is a little newer track. All right, and it's, right there. I took a picture of it. I think you got that too.
Yeah.
And then I track on down to that creek where I knew she crossed at least once. And in the exact same place, in the exact, creek, everything, there was her track again. She crossed that same place, and the track was so fresh that the dirt that fell down on her track as she got up out of that creek was still wet. The mud around it was dry, but her track was fresh, and the mud that she'd dislodged on the bank was fresh in her track.
Right.
And so this is a 30 to 45 minute old track. All right. I get excited. Oh, wow. I've called my son, hey, come on. See that? That's what we're tracking. And he looks and says, wow, that's a track. I said, yeah. So, I start backing up, and I can see the track in the creek. I can see where it looks like maybe a knuckle or something, maybe trying to get out of the creek, and I back up and I start looking for more tracks. I'm looking for more tracks, and then I hear this long, low yell. And it's a quarter mile north of me, back in the hill. Yes. I won't do the sound effect because I don't think I do it that well, but it's about a 13-second long yell. And in the middle of that yell, I look at my son. I said, shut up. I said, listen, you hear that? Yeah, I hear that. And then it stopped, 5-second pause and another one for just about the same length as the first one. I said, that's one. That's one of them. We've tracked them. We're right here on their heels. We need to back out. So, he's kind of laughing because I'm getting nervous, and he's kind of antagonistic. And if something bothers me a little bit, he'll really dig at it.
Right.
So,
he doesn't know the magnitude of what you've been through with these things either.
No. And this is the son that after the second encounter, the one that said Sasquatch is going to get you, ha ha ha, and one of the tarot. This is him. And so, and after seeing the tracks, he's just not really taking it serious.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, you don't understand. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here now. So I start backing out down this creek bottom, and he takes his knife and whacks it on a tree or something, a vine, cutting a vine. I said, don't make any noise, you know. And so, you know, I won't irritate Dad. So he starts whacking. He's doing these three whacks on this tree. I said, please don't do 3 whacks on a tree. You know, I don't need that kind of attention right here. We'd get cut off from our truck. You know, and so I'm trying to back out of this down this creek bottom. I take a right when I shouldn't have. I wind up on the backside of a hill, and he's right behind me. I said, we're in trouble. You know, that's when my anxiety kind of kicked up a bit. Okay, you know, I know about where I am, but I don't know exactly where I am. Let's back out. So we backed out all the way to the creek bottom. I hang a right, go down the creek, and I finally find my trail. I get back to the truck, get in the truck, and I back out.
Yeah.
And of course I told him, you know, they communicate with Knox. Do not ever do that to me again.
Yeah.
You know, and of course he's giggling. He's just goofy, you know. So
right.
we go to the third location where I like to track. Same place I found that track in the anthill. It's so overgrown with grass we couldn't do anything with it. There's, you know, I did find a few running deer tracks, and I don't know what they're running from because there's so much grass I couldn't tell. There was, you know, there was trails through the grass, but you couldn't pick up a foot track. And if it don't have a heel and 5 toes, I don't count it. So we backed out of there and called that a good day. And that was just this past Sunday.
Right. Yeah, that was 4th of July weekend Sunday, right?
Yes, that was that'd be the 4th was Thursday, Friday's the 5th, Saturday it'd be the 7th.
Yeah. Unbelievable. I'm going to say it again. I know everybody hates it, but it just the fact that you're able to locate 5 toes and a heel like often is incredible.
Well, most people don't put their nose on the ground
right.
and track. And I've been doing this quite a while, and I have a pretty good skill set, and that definitely helps me in tracking these things.
Right.
So it also helps to know the area and about where they hang out at, what resources they're going to need right then. You know, because there was a lot of pig activity in that bottom, and you know, they stay pretty close to game. They don't get very far from game or water.
Yeah.
Water especially. You know, water seems to be very important to them. So
now, me ask you this: when you heard those yells this past Sunday, the 4th of July Sunday, you said it was like a quarter of a mile away.
Yes.
Do you think they yelled because they knew y'all were there, or did they just yell unknowing that you were there? Because occasionally that's what they may do.
I do believe they yell on their own without anybody around.
Yeah.
But this yell was a very concerned yell. If you can take a message from a tone, you know, if something if raw is aggressive, this was then certainly concern. And I really take that the situation, you know, I believe this was Sam, and he had already been shot at trying to get across Dim Road once.
Yeah.
And my truck was there. And with my truck being there, I think he was concerned about crossing again. And I was where he wanted to be, and he couldn't cross. He knew I was there, and he had already been shot at with my truck there once, you know, already. Right. And so he had concern, and he was yelling. I believe he was yelling concerned. And my big concern was, if Sasha hears that, and he's concerned about me, then she's going to become concerned about me.
Yeah.
And that would make a very poor encounter.
Yeah.
And and I don't want to make a mistake with a study group that I have going on. I would really like to, you know, repair the mistake that someone made shooting at him. I'd really like to repair that because I really wanted a relationship with him so I can continue studying, because he'll hunt me down and come right, in the brush looking at me and making a nuisance of himself, and I'm just trying to enjoy myself. But I was really looking forward to the future of trying to maybe even get closer to him. But
right.
I'm going to have to do some repair on that because of that gunshot.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't want to make myself a nuisance of him being concerned. I got out of the area to let him know that I'm not anything that could be concerned with. I'll respect your space, and I'll be back later to talk to you,
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, we also know from your past interviews that Sasha's track is somewhat distinguishable to you because of what you've gained or learned because of her injury, where it's 4 toes and a heel, and then if she's going uphill, then you generally see the 5 toes, and you've made that distinction. So that's how you come to know that it's Sasha in that print. How do you discern Sam's print to know that it's Sam?
Sam is the same shape of his father, Big Sam, except smaller. Sasha's track, 15.5 inch around 15 inch, is slender and more feminine than Big Sam. Big Sam's track is, at least 19 inches. It's very wide, even flat-footed to me, and very long. Sam's track is very wide and flat-footed, much like Big Sam's, but
it's
smaller.
Yeah, smaller. So we haven't heard much from Big Sam in a lot of your studies and your scouting expeditions out there. Do you think he's still do you think it's still those 3? Do you think there's more, or just these 2 right now in what you like to call your area?
Sam hangs out away from Sasha. He's never very far. I've only found his track once, and that was the night that we pushed him. I actually invited them in with my Knox into the fire with my buddy.
Yeah.
And when we were pushing when I knew I was pushing Sasha and little Sam, that's when I found his track. That's when I found out he was around. That was the first time I'd seen his track, and from the actions of the big male up in Arkansas, when he came in from a long distance. So they're never far away, but they're not close around either unless they have to be.
So, but that wasn't. You've seen Sam's track more than once, though.
Oh, Sam is the most tracked one up there to me.
Yeah.
I can find hers sometimes. She does pay attention to where she steps. I don't think hiding their tracks is a big priority, but, because they have to cross areas that they cannot hide their tracks in. They have to. But
right.
if they can, they will. And if she can hide her tracks, she will. But it's not like, a great priority, especially if they're not in a hunt mode. If they're just relaxing, and he's running circles around her like an annoying little kid will, But his tracks I find quite a few places. I really blame or think it's because of his, he's rambunctious and he's young.
Yeah.
Most adult animals, when they make a move, it's a calculated move, and I'm not talking just Sasquatch. I'm talking any animal, adult, when it makes a move because either there's cover for safety, feed, water, or procreation.
Right. And it makes sense because you haven't really found Big Sam's track a lot, right?
No, he stays in the cover. He stays way back. A big male is hard to track. It's hard to find unless you go down across the forest leaving little droplets of scent, and then you'll pull them in. But you know, I've had 3 encounters with big males. One of them I didn't know he was there until I found his track. The second one was down in the second encounter, and then the third one was up when they got real aggressive when I yelled.
Now, do you think there's more than just Big Sam, Little Sam, and Sasha in this area?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know about in the area, but in the surrounding areas, I believe they have their own territories.
Yeah. So it's sounding like this area that you know so well since 2003, and really you've hunted this area since you've been a kid.
Oh yeah,
It's these 3 that you generally have been able to correlate, hang, or cohabitate in this area. So what would you say if you had to put a radius around that area of where they are, where they stay?
I would say if I put a radius, I'd say 10 to 12 miles.
Really?
Yeah, minimum 10 to 12 miles minimum. Because I've found, I've been out. I'm trying to think how far it was where I was at when I found them. I would have to say, at least 10 to 12 miles, because 10 miles out, I could still knock with them and find the tracks. But I really go into this one area. They have a home range that they like to hang out with at, because they feel safe, and it has plenty of cover, and there's a lot of piglets and deer and snakes and berries.
Yeah, they just don't have to cover that much ground, and then it makes sense, I guess, during the summer not to exert yourself.
Well, when you're out living, it's just the same as you. If you expend more calories than you take in, you eventually starve to death. And so the adults, like I said, as an adult, you calculate everything you do, and you have a reason for doing it. The young one, they'll run and scream just because they feel like it.
Right. So do you think there is a time of day, a general... I mean, it's impossible to pattern these things, but I don't care what anybody says. Meeting you and the intimate nature in which you have done your own, I'm not even going to call it research, your own education.
Study. Yeah.
Yes, your own study. Okay. Do you think they loaf like other game animals do, or hang in an area for a particular reason? Because if they've got to take care of the caloric intake needs, being that big,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it just seems like, they wouldn't travel that far. They just wouldn't be that. Now, if they had to, it's different. A lot of people talk about how they use these corridors and they move from place to place. And that's a possibility. But it seems like we're talking about your area, this area in North Louisiana.
I would like to.
It seems like they're comfortable there. Somewhat comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to point out, I did find a corridor going from one area to another. It's theirs. I know where it is. It's about 4.5 feet wide trail that they use when they move from one area to another. I believe their favorite haunt to hang out at in the daytime, I found it. I know about where they are because I can have daytime interactions with them there. And I think they hang out in there, and mostly I believe they're nocturnal. But my big question is how quickly do they deplete the natural resources in an area?
Yeah.
You know, that's my big question, and because that is going to drive them whether they move or whether they don't move or where they go to.
And really, truly, it's not like other game animals where a coyote or something might leave a hide or a skull or something, a piece of the. I mean, you never really. I don't think you're ever going to come across a Bigfoot kill that left food.
Yeah.
You're never going to know. There's no way to quantify that. How much they're taking in, how they deplete an area, or if they do.
Yeah, you know, I think they really work with nature because just from the amount of animals that are still around, they don't go in and take more than they need. You know, they go in and they take what they need, and that's it.
You said you had big cats there. When you say big cats, do you mean panther?
Oh, yeah, I've tracked panthers up there. Yeah,
really?
I've tracked panthers up there, yes. And
the black ones or like the tan ones?
The tan ones, they're kind of a deer color tan.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, my son and I found one of their kills, panther kill.
Was buried partially?
It was kind of tucked up against a log.
Yeah.
And it was fresh. You know, it was fresh. You know, I mean, it was, you know, anything was fleshy was eat off of it. And I found cub tracks, and that's when I told my son, hey, you know, my son was young then. I said, we got to get back out of here because there's a cub around here somewhere. And
wait, what?
You know, of course,
a what?
A cub.
Oh, a cub. A young one.
We found a kill, and we found a cub track next to the kill.
Okay.
So when we backed out of there, we heard that big cat coming, and my son starts calling to it. He starts meowing at it. Meow. I said, son, shut up. We're 3 miles back here. But
so do you think it's possible that Sasquatch hunt those cats?
I don't know. I haven't found any big cat tracks running like they're being chased. I found deer tracks running like they've been chased, and I found pig tracks running like they've been chased. And that area that I just left on the 7th was tore up. It looked like there must have been 50 hogs in there. So, I mean, they got a good food source in that bottom.
I was just about to say, there's no depletion going on in Louisiana, Texas, Alabama when it comes to pork. Yeah,
well, when it comes to, you know, I was really looking at how come I'm now having these problems, you know, because, you know, it comes to, you know, why did I run into this, you know? And I really think that the pig problems in the South are really leading to a greater population of Bigfoot. You know, as far as, you know, how their meals are, how, you know, how they can feed themselves, you know. Yeah. And so I think encroachment. I think that is a theory. I think encroachment coupled with a growth in population is why my woods have been taken over.
Yeah.
You know. So, which we could theorize about that quite a bit, you know.
Yeah. And I was doing some research too, because I have the means to look at landowner parcel land data, and up in that area, there is a lot of land holdings held by smaller forest industry businesses that are located, I mean, in Jackson. That's something you and I will talk about. And I don't know if they lease it out to hunters or, I don't know, if it's off limits for leasing and it's strictly timber production, whether they dependent on the markets and all with pulp and saw timber. But I just noticed that around there, the tracks that are around that area, there's some larger ones there, and it's out of state. It's out of state forest industry that's got that held up. Yeah. Whew, man, now was something else. The last question I got for you for tonight is, how did you come up with the big aggressive Sasquatch call?
On the first hunt, we had 8 people there. You know, and it was a mess, and everybody's yelling and hollering and running around and shaking bushes and stuff, you know. Well, at the end of that night, my son asked me, he says, "Hey, Dad, just do one call," you know, and I did. And then way back out there, and I know about where he was because I know the area, I hear this, call out there. And that's when I said, okay.
Answer yours.
Yeah. I think the commotion of everybody.
Yeah.
And all the collaring and yelling and the knocking and all the commotion, and, you know, it irritated it maybe. And then when I let out a yell, and he yelled back, and that's the yell that I use. And what I just did gives it no justice. Another thing, as far as a yell goes, they are large animals. You have to empty everything out of your lungs, fill it back up to even get close to the capacity of what they do.
Yeah.
You know, and so it really does take a lot to do that yell.
Yeah.
The only way I would do it is if, you know, if I really wasn't getting anything on knocks, and if I really wanted to know if something's around, I would do that yell. And especially if I had an audioist. If I had an audioist and
well, you got one now.
And someone running camera, because I mean, I really want to come to Mississippi. I just bought 2 brand new tires for my back of my truck. I busted one up there at the on the, you know, getting out of the woods Sunday. So I got 2 brand new tires. And
we're definitely going to do some trips. Here's one thing, you know. This is going to be a 2-part question, and everybody hears the first part, and then they hear the person answer it in their own words, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think it's a cliche and it's just a normal question that everybody has to ask, but it really holds some weight, I think, in your studies, and that's what we're going to call them. We're going to call them the Patrick Vaugn studies.
All right.
If someone is getting into this, is getting into wanting to research, and we all know that there are people out there all over the place that are doing this. We know that there are people that don't know what they're doing. We know that there are people like you who are somewhat knowledgeable and have a little bit more inclination on what's happening based off what they are witnessing, regardless if they're not seeing this. You being a tracker has opened the door to this type of study. And I guess my question is whether someone is a researcher just starting out and knows nothing, or a veteran person that's going out there. And we're talking particularly in the South here. I think South, East Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama. You know these people are going to go out and try stuff, whether it's going to be a knock or screaming and yelling or whatever methods they're going to use. And I'm not asking you to give me instructions. What I'm asking you is basically to give me your honest opinion on how to approach it, how to psychologically think about it when you're out there doing it.
Okay. Well, I already established a knock is a Sasquatch. Now, establishing that,
yes,
a knock is saying, I am here. And where your feet are determines whether you're, I'm here, or I'm here. You know what I mean? And that's two different tones, depending on where your feet are. Yeah. So if I didn't know anything, or if I was just getting started out and just having an inkling of what I wanted to do, I would start off in a developed area where man frequents. And they know that when they come into it, that they're stepping into an area that they're going to encounter man, or could encounter man. And I would do it from a safe area, you know, whether
like
it be a dim road
or a road. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would do it, and I would knock from there, and I would only use one knock. Don't ever do two or three if you don't really, because a single knock is very complicated in context. It's the context in which is being made really states what you're saying, and when you have a conversation with these, it's just like over talking someone when you're talking to them. It's like, if you talk over someone, if you talk out of turn, all those things are applicable to this.
Right.
So it's just a single knock isn't going to hurt anything from a developed area,
okay.
and until you gain a better understanding of what they're saying and the animals, because the animals that you're doing this to are studying you too, and
mm-hmm.
when an animal patterns you, they'll pattern you coming out to an area and doing a particular thing. And so if they get used to you doing this, and they may come in friendly and knocking, and most time they will be friendly if you're in a developed area. So just don't get overcomplicated with the knocks until you know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and also, what constitutes a single knock, the time frame in between being able to do that again and still be in one knock and not be two? Do you understand what I'm saying?
At least...
Like, do you do it once and you just do one knock the entire time you're there? Or will they understand one knock, after 5 minutes you do one knock, they still think it's one knock, even though you've done two over a consecutive period of time?
Okay, if you're knocking that animal, I make it no more than, say, 45 seconds. If you do one, and it'll wait at least 45 seconds for doing a second one. That'll constitute you doing a single knock. But if you have an animal coming in to you, if you knock and you wait, say, 45 seconds, a minute, whatever, and it's not going to answer the first one. The first one's always a fluke to it. It takes the second one. Now, when you knock the second time, you should get an answer within under 10 seconds. Now, if it answers, I'd wait at least another 30 before I answered back. Because these things are very patient. They don't start just beating the hell out of something. They're very methodical in how they talk on a knock. And so I would do a knock and I'd wait a minute or so and do another knock and wait. And if I didn't get a response, I would keep doing that a minute or so, and from a developed area so that you're not being intrusive.
Yes.
And because you can have a real bad encounter like that. You really can.
And I am so glad that I've gotten to meet you and talk to you and know this, because as much as I've wanted to do a knock in the woods, I've been about 4 times now within 7 months. And believe me, I've thought about wanting to do it, but you know what stops me? Not knowing what it means.
Well, I understand that.
And being somewhere that I know I can't run my ass out fast enough.
Well, see, that's another thing, partially, but I was talking about a developed area.
Yeah.
I always have an out. I make sure I always have an out. I learned that in the second encounter. It sucks when they cut you off from your truck. And you got to handle it right there, and they're going to pursue you until whatever question is in their mind is answered completely and fully, no matter how you feel about it.
They're testing you.
They're what?
Testing you. It's almost like they're testing you.
Well, when you call one in, it wants to know what you want.
Yeah.
All right. It wants to know, hey, what are you doing calling me? I was busy doing my own little thing. I'm here. What do you want? Because if you're in a developed an improved area, I'll say that, because improved may be a little bit better to understand on a map, because you see improved areas. If you're in an improved area and you do a knock and you do your second knock and it comes up and It's knocking at you. It wants to know what you want. It's there to understand what you want and what you need, what the requirements are. And when it looks at you either as a threat or a resource.
Right. So before, I don't mean to cut you off, and I know my listeners are but I got to get this in before I forget it, because I don't have my pen. Have you come up with an answer to what you just told me? They're saying to themselves, okay, you just called me in. What do you want? Have you come up with something, I don't know what, to give them an answer? A content answer that they would understand as being content or non-threatening from you.
One with the little one, if she has a little one, all right, they teach their little ones about us. They study, the adults study you. When they have a little one, the little one has to learn as well. And so the one where my partner wanted to have an experience at the fire,
yeah.
That little one that went, Sam, when Sam was circling around us, that was Sasha letting him study us and look at us and learn us and get an experience with us. Because he has to know for his own, when he gets older, he has to know how to avoid us. They study you so that they know how to avoid you by your tendencies. You know.
So now, I wonder if they get the non-threatening feeling from us, their answer, so to speak, by getting close enough to view what we're doing, or is it strictly auditory?
I think they can feel. I think they can sense. And I know this is going to sound weird. I know it is, but hell, I'm here talking about Bigfoot, right? So, how can I say this?
I think you can say it by a mother having a preconceived notion to knowing what their children are about to get into. It's a feeling that you just know. And that's it.
Yeah,
maybe that's what they sense of us.
Well, I go in with no malice. And I think they sense that from me. I'm not walk around with a gun in my hand. Even though I may have one on my hip, I don't have one on my hand. I don't go in with any malice in my heart. And
right.
And I've had no problem with them, communicating. And so, and from an improved area, they come in inquisitive, I believe, because they do study. They do study people. And if you know how to talk to them, they're going to want to know why. How does this person know to talk like this? Who does he know? And so they do come in inquisitive like that.
Well, I imagine it's extremely odd for them, whether they're curious or not, to usually think of human beings as people that follow patterns and follow trails and roads and do the same thing all the time when we impede on their areas. Well, now we have an educated Patrick Vaugn who has no malice, but is somewhat speaking broken Sasquatch with them. Yeah. And for any species, when you break some sort of boundary like that, I think there's curiosity on both sides.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely curious, and I believe Sasha was studying me as much as I studied her. So it was a mutually beneficial relationship. Because they have to avoid us. They have to.
Yeah.
And to have someone that tracks and gets back in the places where they're at and can talk with them, I think that is a curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think she in her own right has to know more about me, because how many more of me are out there?
Right.
And
I don't think there's many though. I think that's why you're unique to them.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people. We had that talk about hunters in general. Hunters,
yeah.
Today they get off their four-wheeler, their side-by-sides, they park it, they walk 40 or 50 yards down to the field, they walk in, they get in the box stand, they hunt. Boom, they go on and do the same thing again. Just like you said, a lot of people, most hunters, just don't put their nose to the ground anymore. And I agree with you there. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, we've been on here for an hour and 40, and I know we can go more.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm not saying that for you to be sorry at all. I just want to make it try not to make it a 2-hour show, so we can save some for part 4 when we do the live. But you had given your tidbits there on some information on how to get started, how to talk in the woods somewhat. Here's my tip for people out there, and that is I come from a forestry background. I cut my teeth, primarily hunted in the marsh, hunting ducks since I've been 4 years old with my dad. It wasn't until I was about 16 or 17 that I got into hunting wild turkeys up in Mississippi. And I had a good mentor, and a lot of times he wasn't there. And the way I learned to get in them woods, because, you know, people can say they're good in the woods, but the most professional woodsman will tell you that it's easy to get lost. And I've gotten lost. But one of my tips are, if you want to get out into an area and start looking, I think the first thing you should do is consult Google Earth, Google Maps, and if you have to print something out or have a mapping program, I can help you with that. But you start creating some radiuses in an area that you want to go. And let's say that radius is only 300 yards in the woods. You're really green. So then you get yourself either a GPS or a decent app on one of your iOS or Android devices. And you go out and you go to this area and you go in there and you walk that radius. You get in the woods, you pinpoint the center point. If you have to, take some brass tags, or what I like to do is I take flagging. Is what I used to do. I take flagging. I find a center tree, usually something really identifiable, some big longleaf pine or oak or something, beech, and I would wrap a big thing around it, and then I would start doing a spiral around that oak. I'd make one circle, and then I'd get wider. I'd go out 10, 15 feet more and go out and just walk that whole thing until you get to that radius, and then you do it back in the same way. And that's what I did on a 160-acre block in Mount Olive. When I didn't have time or I didn't know what I was doing hunting turkeys, I would go get in those woods, and I would get familiar with that center point and where I like to go. And I would get to the fringes of where I knew I was kind of like, man, if I go anymore, I'm going to get lost. But then I would keep going, or I would go back to my ribbon tree, say, okay, I found it. I know where I am. Because you always, and another thing I tell people is when you're in the woods and you're walking, what are you doing the majority of the time? You're looking ahead of yourself. I always walk and look behind me and take a mental picture all the time just to see what's behind me. So that's a little tip. I don't know if anybody found that helpful, but if you're afraid to get in the woods, you're afraid of getting lost, there is a strategic method that you can use, whether it's a small 150-yard radius, or you want to take a mile or a 40-acre block if you're a little bit more seasoned, avid hunter. And just get in there, and the woodsmanship alone is worth everything and means everything. For me, in anything I do, when it comes to the woods, that's paramount, is knowing the woods. It's knowing your directions, knowing where to get out, knowing where the roads are, knowing where the creeks are, getting familiar with the interior. And I usually tend to do that in leaf off during the winter seasons. Why? Because it's easier. And then guess what? The game changes when it comes to late spring, early summer, because you can get turned around in there the same way. But that's my little tip that I'm going to include when it comes to starting in on looking for Sasquatch or studying Sasquatch or doing your scouting. As always, my friend, I appreciate your time immensely. Every time we talk is just really awesome. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I don't know how or why you picked me. I don't care. I don't want you to explain why. I'm just glad you did. Hey, I don't take myself too seriously, but in the same retrospect, I take what I do seriously, and I'm a problem solver with anything that I do. So, I think you and I meeting up, maybe, I don't know, it might have been bound to happen. You've got the tracking skills, the woodsman skills. Hell, you know where, I think you said 8 or 9 of these creatures are within a 200-mile radius. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
A lot of these subs and the people who are commenting say, man, if you say unbelievable one more time, I'm going to gag. And I'm saying to myself, how can you not? How can you not listen to this guy?
Well,
and not feel that way?
I got one tidbit to put out there if I can.
Yeah, you have that.
To anybody interested in going out and starting this, if you're looking to go doing tracking and you put your nose down and you're tracking, whether you're finding tracks or not, what is out there is watching you track. Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there tracking enough, what is watching you track is going to be suspicious of who you're tracking. And if you're tracking them, that'll be their suspicion, and the woods will change.
Yeah.
Your whole world, the whole attitude of the woods changes once they find out you're tracking them. And so that's a little bit of a warning as far as how far back you get into the woods, and don't get cut off from your truck, So just be mindful and be wary of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
it's been great, thank you, and I hope we can do a live and answer a lot of the questions that people are putting out there.
Well, there's no hoping, my friend. It's going to happen. We're just going to coordinate it on a good time. So hang on right there, and I'll stop the recording.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for listening in to the Patrick Vaugn Chronicles, Bigfoot Encounters from North Louisiana. This is part 3. There is going to be a part 4, and it's going to be live with this man right here, the man himself, Patrick Vaugn. Stay tuned. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we really appreciate you leaving some nice comments for a change. That would be great. Until next time, YouTube and friends, take care, and we'll be right back.